Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Betslip. I'm joined by Ben Heisler. Ben, it is the first time that we are doing one of these kind of one-on-one shows. Usually it's either myself or you are playing roles of the host. But today it's kind of the two hosts are getting together for a little Daily Betslip action. We got a jam-packed show. We got best bets for today. We got some viewer picks that were submitted earlier today. We're going to take a look at tonight's game of the night, which is the Yankees and the Blue Jays. I have very strong opinions about that game. We'll get into that. And we're going to break down how to bet on both the NHL and NBA playoffs. If you're either new to betting on either of them, especially if you're new to the NHL, because I know some people don't really bet on the NHL until the playoffs come around, we're going to break down some basic stats and some key things that you might want to look at before placing your bets, just to make those bets a little bit more educated and hopefully give them a better chance of hitting. But breaking news right before we started, do got to bring this up. Marcus Smart is out tonight for the Celtics against the Bucks. Ben, do you have any initial reaction to that? We haven't seen the line move yet. It's still hanging around 4.5. Is that going to change your opinion on the game at all, really quick?
I would imagine it changes maybe a point or two. And again, for anybody that's watching it, Marcus Smart. For anybody that's watching it from the Boston perspective. I mean, he's Defensive Player of the Year. You can make an argument that there were a couple other guys that might have deserved it a little bit more, maybe not even the best defensive player on the Boston Celtics. But what stood out to me is that even though it was still a double-digit loss in game one, Smart was one of a handful of players that still finished with a positive plus minus on the game at +3. Didn't shoot it well, only went 3 of 11, only made 1 3-point shot out of 6 attempts. Like, his presence to be able to guard multiple guys on the floor is substantial. And now that he's out, I wonder too, we talked about the line not necessarily changing, but I think this could also be in play to move the over in that direction as well. Not having a guy like Smart to be able to close out a lot of these different possessions. I'll be curious to see what the over under ends up going to. Last time I saw it is 215. Actually, to give you the breaking news on top of the breaking news, Ian, the lines have just changed over at WinBet. So the Celtics have been moved down from 4.5 down to 4. So just a slight line change there, only at 0.5 point. But the total has creeped up to 215.5 over at WinBet. So a small margin for Marcus Smart. Maybe I overestimated it just a tad, but it's still a sizable loss for Boston.
Yeah, still something to keep in mind of before you place your bets. Now, we obviously have a ton of sports betting things to talk about, but right before we went live, I was letting you know that I've become addicted to LaCroix.
No, you got it right. It's LaCroix.
I think this is my 5th can of the day, and you said that you had a seltzer take. So I'm interested to hear this.
Yes, because I feel like, even though you're still in your late 20s, I'm in my early to mid 30s. Like I haven't completely gotten to old man status yet. I suppose that's relative based on the company that you keep. But I've been drinking seltzer for many, many years. Like even as a kid, like that was like the go-to because our parents wouldn't let us drink soda in the house. If we went out, that was another thing. I will tell you that the best combination of soda water, seltzer, club soda, whatever it'll be, is about 70% club soda or seltzer and like 30% orange juice. That is like the most delicious drink. Like I can drink that at any point. Sometimes I prefer that. Like even if I was like, I could go for a beer right now. Nope. Go for the orange juice and club soda. Anybody that has not tried that dynamic combination, you are missing out because it is absolutely spectacular. It's refreshing, it's crisp, and you still get a little bit of fresh squeezed juice in the process as well.
I feel like that would almost taste like a non-alcoholic mimosa.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's another way to approach it. So yeah, it's great in the morning. I've also noticed that sometimes if you eat too much, the acidity in the orange juice and the club soda helps your stomach feel a little bit better too. So it's really a drink you can have at any point in the day.
I don't want to spend any more time on this than we have to, but one last question. I know some of these like homemade like ones where you like push the button. I want as much fizz as possible. I want it to burn my throat going down. Are you the same or are you a little bit on the lighter for the carbonation level?
No, give me as much carbonation as possible. And sometimes too, like You get, especially if you have a flat club soda, then you might as well just go ahead and drink the water. You're not enjoying the benefits of having it as fizzy as possible. So, and by the way, I know Donovan's checking in too. He says seltzers are very underrated, stocked in the back fridge at the Smoot household. Salute to you. I don't know how you feel, Ian, about the world of hard seltzers, but I think as somebody who does enjoy beer from time to time, it's good to have a little bit of a mix, especially if it's paired well and it has a good flavor to it.
I actually just kind of made the transition this past week to hard seltzers because I'm trying to.
Oh, you did?
Drop a couple LBs,
full-on transition, or it's just like
I'm dipping my toe in the water. I'm trying to drop a couple LBs, and like drinking a beer is like eating a whole loaf of bread. So I'm trying to make the transition. I had some black cherry ones this past weekend. Delightful.
Okay, very good. I don't know if I've gone with the black cherry route yet. There's a couple that I'm brand loyal to, but I'll keep looking for it.
But enough of the seltzer talk. We got a lot of sports stuff to get into here, Ben. That was just something funny that we got brought up right before we went live there. If you are watching this on Twitter, be sure to head over to YouTube, join the live chat. I see Donovan and Peter is in there. Peter says another easy Yankees win tonight, huh, Ian? Never. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but you think I'm going to take the Yankees against my Blue Jays? How dare you? So yeah, we got a lot of things to get through. Let's start with kind of the first segment that we usually do on this show. And also there was a Twitter poll as well. I don't know if it's still live. It is going to be up on YouTube as well. Tell us who to bet on in tonight's game of the night between the Jays and Yankees, and we will place our bets at the end of the show. But let's get into bad beat of the day. I believe this was last night. I believe this was the NBA. I was glued to the NHL. I did not watch any NBA last night. So, Ben, you're going to have to break this one down for me. I believe it was the Mavericks against the Suns.
Yeah, this was a bad beat for anybody that joined myself and Peter Dewey on Daily Betslip yesterday. It was nice that the three of us, and by I say three, I mean myself, Peter, and the community, all in agreement, all in lockstep on Dallas +6. This is a team that I know they haven't beaten Phoenix in a long time, but they've played them close, and especially with the way that they played coming off the Utah series, and Phoenix still trying to get their footing, getting Devin Booker back into the mix. We thought the 6 points felt like a lot. Phoenix was in control for most of the game. Dallas ended up cutting it to 5 at the very end. And then just when you felt like Dallas was going to be able to cover that number, they go ahead and foul Devin Booker with just a few seconds left in a 5-point game. Really no need. The game was already over. Booker, of course, sinks both free throws, and anybody that was on the Dallas +6 side ends up holding on to their ticket and just looking to the skies going, really? Really? So that's what happened last night. Felt bad for the community. They got on board with myself and Peter, and unfortunately, we let them down.
So was the line exactly at 6? So if you missed one of the two, then you still would have pushed?
Yes. Yeah, the line was at 6, closed at least at WinBet at 6 over the course of the night. Some books had it at 5.5 for a while, but I believe it closed 6 consensus.
Peter says, Spencer Dinwiddie officially on my no-bet list after missing that wide-open shot to cover.
Yeah. 0.9 seconds left. They basically said, we'll dare you. We'll dare you, Spence. Go ahead and make this 3. And, of course, did not go through. So we had him, Peter weighing in. Like, this was right there for the taking. Phoenix let the Mavericks just come right back for an opportunity to backdoor cover. Just unfortunately couldn't get it done. You lose by a smidge every so often.
To be fair, I feel like it would have been a bad beat on either side of the one. It's kind of one of those endings of the games. If Dinwiddie hits that 3-point shot, Suns bettors are probably just as angry. So
that might have been probably, had he made that shot, I think it would have been even more devastating, considering that the Suns were in control, had double-digit leads for most of the game. And then we'd be talking about a serious bad beat, especially with Phoenix just being in control for most of the game.
Yeah, makes sense. Ben, are you ready to get into our best bets for the day?
Let's do it. I'm excited because I know that you got a handful of NHL games on the slate. I got a couple of NBA games as well as a prop in Major League Baseball. So we're approaching this tonight from a wide angle lens, if you will.
Yes, we are going to attack a little bit of everything tonight. Instead of alternating picks on the show today, I'm just going to list off my NHL ones, give my quick reason for each, and then Ben will go to you and you'll hit your MLB and NBA picks. So let's just let's get a little hockey action out of the way here. I did commit yesterday that I am going to bet on every single NHL game, so we'll see how that goes. I went 2-2 yesterday. Slight profit, though, because I did hit the Kings as +170 underdogs in the final game last night. So we're back on it today, and I am sorry to say that I'm going very chalky today. very chalky. So we're starting off with the Rangers and the Penguins, the closest game of the night. I think the series is even set as a pick'em at WinBet. These are all game ones. The first 4 game ones were last night. The next 4 tonight. I'm going to go with the Rangers minus 130. Slight home favorites in this one. I have no interest in betting against Rangers goaltender Igor Shesterkin. He is the shoe-in for Vezina Trophy. An actual historic season for goaltending, 2.07 goals against average, 0.935 save percentage. So basically, if the Rangers score 3 goals, like they almost guarantee themselves a win in a sense. Obviously, he's had games where he's given up 3 or more goals, but a 2.07 goals against average is just insane. And early in the year, I will admit, I was anti-Rangers. I even might have called them a fraud at one point in time.
That tends to happen every so often here.
Yeah, I've been known to throw the fraud word out now and
just tad.
but a big reason why I didn't like them early in the year is even though Shesterkin was playing well, their defense wasn't. That has actually changed. So I've taken them off my fraud list. In fact, over their last 10 games, 6th in the NHL in high danger scoring chances against. And if you're curious what that is, by the way, stay tuned. We're going to go over that in a little bit as well. And the Rangers beat the Penguins twice in the last month of the regular season by a combined score of 6-2. So I think the Rangers get it done tonight. I think they win this series as well. I have no interest in betting against the best and hottest goalie in the NHL. Give me the Rangers minus 130 for my first bet of the night.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. It's going to be a very raucous crowd at Madison Square Garden. I believe this is the first playoff game at home that the Rangers have hosted, since 2017. So you're going to have an absolutely unbelievable atmosphere. If Igor gets himself going, and again, I'm going to butcher his name, so I might as well just go ahead and call him Igor. Rest of the NHL world knows who I'm talking about. If he stands on his head in the first game, it's going to set a very direct tone. And I've also seen that Pittsburgh, 5-15 in the playoffs, going back to the last 20 games that they've played in. So for whatever reason, for a team that's got a lot of Stanley Cup experience, they have not put it together over the last couple of years, despite 16 straight trips to the postseason.
Yeah, good point there about Madison Square Garden. I'm actually curious how much a ticket is there right now. Probably like $1,000. Going to be an expensive ticket. Regular season tickets are expensive. Madison Square Garden. That place is going to be bumping. Tough crowd that the Penguins need to play in front of. So yeah, I'll take the Rangers. Pretty decent price, minus 130, I think.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Like I said, I'm pretty chalky with my NHL picks tonight. I apologize. I gave a big underdog last night, so forgive me. Panthers against the Capitals. Not only am I taking the Panthers, I'm not going to lay the juice. So I'm going to take puck line minus 1.5 here. I got it at plus 110 at WinBet. Capitals goaltender. First of all, this is just an absolutely terrible matchup for the Capitals. I'm actually not a huge believer in the Panthers long-term in the playoffs, but terrible matchup for the Capitals. Their goaltender, Ilya Samsonov, has not been playing well the second half of the NHL season. In fact, over their last 25 games, the Capitals are second last in the NHL in save percentage at 88. They're only stopping 88.2% of shots, and now they're taking on by far the best offense in all of hockey. Panthers are averaging 4.06 goals per 60 minutes this year. That's first by wide margin. I think it's the Leafs in second. I think they're like 3.74. So wide margin, the Panthers are the best offense in the NHL. And now they take on a team that has been, literally the second worst team in terms of allowing goal, in terms of save percentage over the last 25 games. So I think everything is going against Washington in this one. They also stumbled into the playoffs, did not have a good end of their season, taking on the President's Trophy winner. I think this is a blowout. If you're able to get plus money on this still, I think it's the bet to make. So Panthers minus 1.5 in the first game of that series.
I know the Panthers have had a historic season, and for as dominant of an offensive team as they are, I think what stands out to me is that the Capitals are probably going to try and slow things down, right? Like, you need to be able to find a way to neutralize how good that Panthers defense or that Panthers offense has been. But both of these teams, I looked this up, ranked in the top 7 in hits. They average just under 25 hits per 60 minutes. So not only do you have a Florida team that can get up and down the ice, but they'll stay with you. Like, they're not a soft team by any stretch. So even if Washington tries to slow things down, get really physical in the series, Florida's going to be prepared for that. So I think they're going to make quick work of a Capitals team that is removed for a handful of years from their Stanley Cup. And I think the Panthers, just by far and away, just what a season they've had, and they can get you on both ends of the ice. So I'm really excited for this series. And I think especially with Florida continuing to find both ways to find wins. I don't mind it on the puck line at all.
Yeah, and if you're new to hockey and you want to watch an exciting game, just watch the Panthers games. They play such a wide open style of hockey. It's probably the most exciting team to watch in the NHL, outside of, maybe I'm biased, the Maple Leafs, who go Leafs. Big win last night, easy win. Road to the Stanley Cup is clear, playing the parade route. But yeah, the Panthers are very exciting to watch. They can run into trouble, and I think they will later on in the playoffs when they play against better defensive teams and teams that have strong goaltending, but the Capitals are certainly not that. So Panthers in a blowout tonight for my second pick. My third pick, I'm going to go with a total in this one. This one's a little bit tough. At WinBet, it's at 6, and this is between the Stars and Flames, the final game tonight. Most books I'm seeing around 5.5. So you might want to shop around if you want the hook. If you want to kind of, get plus money, I think the under 5.5 is going to be plus money. If you want kind of that safety of getting it right at 6, you can get that at WinBet, but it's minus 125. So kind of which way you want to go with it. But over the last 25 games, the Dallas Stars ranked 27th in shooting percentage, only finding the back of the net on 8.89% of their shots. So they are a team that has not shot well, and now they're playing against one of the best defensive teams in the entire NHL. Over that same span, the Flames ranked 3rd in high danger scoring chances allowed and 4th in expected goals against. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a defensive battle here, especially with the Stars offense kind of sputtering to close out the year. So I got the under 6 there at WinBet. That's my play for that one. I didn't want to go, like I said, just take the Flames and take the chalk. I will say I also have a bet. I'm not going to spend any time on it, but I also have a bet on the Avalanche game. I'm taking the Avalanche puck line as well. And I think that was like minus 120 against the Predators. Predators are screwed without their goaltender, and I mispronounce it all the time. Yus Saros. I don't know if the J is silent or not. But
That's not hard. We're not sure.
Very, very chalky bet slip for me tonight. 3 favorites and an under. So
I think that's reasonable. Again, if you get the under, and you know that the public almost loves to go overs, especially in game ones of series, they're finally amped up to start betting on Stanley Cup playoff hockey. So even though you got a few favorites here, especially one on the puck line with Florida tonight, I think you throw in an under, it kind of neutralizes it a little bit. So I'm behind it.
Yeah, I couldn't take the Flame. I couldn't take all 4 favorites. So the Stars Flames, I was like, let's look at the total instead, and I kind of like that under. So there you go. Those are my 4 NHL picks. Like I said, Avalanche puck line for the 4th one that I didn't spend too much time on. That is the NHL for tonight. Ben, you got, I believe, some MLB, some NBA. Jump right into it.
Yeah, I got a little smorgasbord of plays tonight. So we'll start in Major League Baseball. Brandon Woodruff got off to a bit of a rough start from Milwaukee this year. In fact, the Brewers kind of got off to a bit of a sputtering start in the first couple of weeks of the season, but they have started to figure things out. They're back home, and they get the Cincinnati Reds. Ian, I don't know if you saw this note that I passed along in our brainstorm today, but according to Codify Baseball, the Cincinnati Reds have an OPS plus of 63. They grade that out of 100, with 100 being league average. It's 63. No American or National League team has ever finished a season that low. So not only are we talking about the Reds, on pace to be the worst team in baseball, they might be on pace to be the worst offensive team ever in a down year for offense in baseball. So the prop for Woodruff is set at 6.5 strikeouts tonight. Initially in the early portion of the day, you were able to get that at plus 105 odds over at WinBet. And the thing is, he hasn't reached that number other than one time this year. Got 9 strikeouts against Pittsburgh. The other times it's been 2, 4, and 6. But he's fanned just under 37% of Cincinnati's current hitters. The Reds are bottom 3 in strikeout percentage this year. So everything is setting up well for him to not only strike out a ton of guys that he's had success striking out before in the past, but he's going to go deep in this game because Cincinnati can't put the ball in play and they can't hit. So more volume, more opportunity is going to lead to more strikeouts. I feel like 7 for a guy like Woodruff, who can go deep into ball games, sets up awfully nice. And especially early on, you can get it at plus money. So I like the over 6.5 strikeouts for Brandon Woodruff at home against a terrible Cincinnati Reds team.
Yeah, any way you can fade the Reds, whether it's a strikeout prop or just – I just looked this up while you were talking. The Reds are 6-16 this season on the run line. So a lot of people have been tweeting at me just like, Ian, just fade the Reds on the run line every single game. And I feel like 10 games ago, I was like, oh, it's probably going to adjust at some point, so I'll just stay off. And now 10 games later, I was like, oh, I could have made a lot of money doing that. And I still haven't done it. But I know there are some people that are just fading the Reds every single game, no matter what, and it's working for them so far. Tough time to be a Cincinnati Reds fan.
Very, very tough. We should have been betting the Dodgers on the run line every game. We should have been fading the Reds on the run line every game. And April would have been an extremely profitable month for us. But you never know how it's going to ultimately unfold. I would imagine, though, that both of those teams will end up still doing pretty well on both the run line, at least from both sides of the coin over the rest of the season. Let's go to the NBA. Pat Connaughton, over 1.5 3-pointers made in this Bucks Celtics series, and especially without Marcus Smart, that's going to be an advantage for Milwaukee. They're going to be able to get some more open looks from beyond the arc. It's crazy that Milwaukee forced Boston into 50 3-point shots in the game one of the series. And you might think to yourself, well, like this is where the bet is focused. Milwaukee shot 34 3-pointers in that game. And they still scored over 100 points. That's actually below their season average. They averaged just under 40 3-point attempts per game. And Connaughton is somebody that is starting to get back into his more traditional minutes. Lost a little bit to Grayson Allen a little bit earlier on in the previous series, but he's starting to get hot. 67% from beyond the arc in his last game, 50% the game before. Throughout the postseason, he's attempted at least 6 3-point shots in every game but 2 of them. To me, this is a volume play, and he's a good enough shooter, especially with Boston not having Smart. I like this line even more. I was able to get it at -130. I don't know if that's where the current line exists over at WinBet or any other book that you might be able to have access to, but Bucks are going to jack up some more threes. Again, season average close to just under 40. They were under that number against Boston. And I think Boston kind of wants to force them to take some more outside shots, unless, especially if you're Giannis, try and keep him outside of the paint as much as possible. So I think Connaughton is going to be able to get his stroke going from beyond the 3-point line tonight.
I have no comment on that pick, other than the fact that every time that I read his name, I always want to pronounce it Pat Connaughton.
That almost came out as well. You look at it, you're like, I know how to pronounce this name. I've said it a million times, and then it's like Connaughton. Nope, that's not right.
Other than that, sounds like a good pick for me. I like whenever I dabble on NBA player props, I like a little 3-pointers prop. Those are fun to watch. But other than that, I say this I feel like every time I do a stream now, is I'm not an NBA guy, so I have very limited knowledge. But I'll take your word for it.
All right. Well, let me get into one other one, and this was a debate for us as far as a potential game of the night. Certainly, I think the more interesting game in this series, considering that, all the certain different options, and the more that I think about it, the more I realize that this is a line that is actually not available for tonight per se, but. I actually got it confused. It is available for night. Went away, came back on the sports book. We're adjusting in real time. I like the Golden State Warriors at -2 tonight against Memphis, game 2 of that series. I'm trying to figure out, Ian, why Golden State is only a 2-point favorite. It could be because they blew an opportunity to cover the last time out. They were 2.5-point favorites. They ended up winning by 1 on the money line. So, if you'd listened to Peter Dewey on this very show on Bet and Breakfast, then you would have been able to cash in. But Golden State had a lot of things just go completely against them in this series. Like Klay Thompson shot terribly in the early portion of the series, just did not get himself going. Draymond Green got ejected from the series in game 1. And when he's off the court, the Warriors are a completely different defensive team. So now you get Draymond Green back. Now you get likely a better shooting night from Klay Thompson. Steph Curry only took 12 3-point shots. It still made 5 of them. But it just wasn't the same type of offensive output from Golden State that we're used to seeing. And Memphis will push pace on them. So that plays out to Golden State. And the Warriors are also a top 3 defensive rated team in the NBA this year. So I don't know whether it's just because bettors are off the Warriors because they didn't cover in game 1, or that Memphis played them tough and John Morant had a really good game. But the Warriors are the far superior team here. And to get them at only -2, maybe I'm trying my luck a little bit, but I feel like they absolutely cover in game 2, go back to the Chase Center in San Francisco, up 2-0 in this series. I really like Golden State to cover tonight.
Yeah, you said you don't know why it's only a 2-point line. So while you were talking, I tried to look up a couple stats there to see if I could figure it out. I can't figure it out from the few stats that I've looked at. Like, it's not like I thought maybe like Memphis is a really good like perimeter defense team. Maybe like the stats say that they can shut down the Warriors 3-point shooting, but no, average like 14th in opponent 3-point field goal percentage. So I don't know.
Yeah, and Jaren Jackson too. If you're talking about elite defensive level players, like he was one of my favorite picks for defensive player of the year, especially with how he had to close out and guard every position on the floor. I mean, he's still going to have to do that against Golden State, but they have Curry, they have Thompson. Jordan Poole has become a star in the final portion of this season. I just don't know what else he can do to be able to take some of these guys out. So I do like Golden State on the road. I don't think they're going to be phased, especially from a close game in game one. Almost makes you realize like they're going to have to step their foot on the gas pedal, make sure Draymond is in throughout the entirety of the game.
Well, speaking of NBA, Ben, we're going to take a look at some picks that were sent in earlier today from some viewers, from some listeners. I tweeted out, I wanted to know, because like I keep saying, not an NBA guy, but I want to bet on NBA tonight. So I said I'm going to tail a few of some people's picks of our followers' picks. I chose a few. Let's take a look at them now, and then I'm going to get your opinion on them before I lock them in. So if we can bring up the first one for Twitter, best bets of the day. I love this one. Nice little breakdown here from Buck Marley. Boston minus 4.5. Listen, the Bucks are the defending. Boston minus 4.5. I don't know if I said Boston or Bucks. Listen, the Bucks are defending champs for a reason, but Boston was the hottest team in the league recently. They were due for an eye-opener loss. The get back is always better than the setback. Hashtag Alfred Hitch Lock. I'm going to tail this based on the hashtag itself.
Yeah, it's a glorious hashtag, and now you can get it actually at a slight discount because Boston has been moved to -4, and it actually makes sense for you, Ian, because you are classic underreact guy. Yes. You're not going to freak out with Marcus Smart not being in the lineup, so maybe there is some value on Boston. I personally would if you're on the Boston side, I do expect this game to be close. I would probably wait a little bit and try and get a better value line in play. I feel like this is more of that game where it's going to slow down. Boston has been really good in the fourth quarter in the postseason, other than in game one of this series. So I think there's going to be an opportunity where Milwaukee might have a short lead heading into the fourth, and you can get some plus value on Boston to win on the money line.
I like it. So shout out to Buck Marley for setting that pick in. Let's bring up the second one from Martin. Giannis to score. Hey, this is aggressive. I always like guys and girls are willing to get a little aggressive with their bets. Giannis to score 35 points, plus 260 to score 40 points, plus 800, 8-1 to put up a 40 burger. His normal point total at WinBet is 29.5. So this is like an alt line of 5 points over his normal point total and 10 points over his normal point total. Did he score a lot in game one against the Celtics? I assume he did because they won by a lot.
No, he had a triple-double. He had 24 points, 13 boards, and 12 assists. And I think Boston, if Giannis ends up having a triple-double, they'll actually live with that because they're forcing him out of the paint. They're forcing him to pass it a little bit more than he probably like to. I don't know if I can get behind it. Again, Boston was the number one defensive rated team in the NBA this year. He had back-to-back 30-point games in games 4 and 5 against Chicago. He has had 3 games in the series of over 30 points, but 35 and 40 just hasn't reached there yet. If this ends up being a game where Giannis has to win it by himself against Boston on the road, then yeah, you could be sitting pretty. But Boston's help defense has just been so good, especially once they made some of their adjustments in the second half of the season, that the 35, maybe I could see it. I don't know if I can get behind the 40, even at those crazy odds. That one isn't for my taking, at least for tonight.
I'm going to sprinkle on it just out of respect for the aggressiveness.
Okay.
Not going to be full unit. I will put a couple dollars on it just out of respect to @Martin Gut.
Gut feeling, gut reaction, gut play.
Love it. Thank you, Martin, for sending that in. Let's bring in our third Twitter user pick. This is my guy @practical_picks. Golden State -2. He doesn't provide a breakdown. Yeah, you like it as well, Ben. So I mean, the two of you like it. I may as well jump on it as well. Yeah. Any additional thoughts about Golden State?
Yeah, let's go for a full show bet. Practical_picks is obviously he got through on that pick before we started diving into it, but it just does feel like the right play in this series, knowing that Thompson is going to be able to bounce back. He'd been so good in the postseason beforehand. To have an off night just doesn't feel like it's going to happen again against the Memphis team, like you said, is kind of middle of the pack defensively.
All right, you're on them. Practical Picks is on them. Now I'm on them. We're making a little community pick. Warriors -2 tonight against the Grizzlies. Let's see one more NBA pick for tonight. I believe this is a player prop. Jaren Jackson, which I think you mentioned about being a defensive player there, if I'm correct there a few minutes ago, Ben. Over 22.5 points plus rebounds, -110 or -120. Better matchup for him statistically. Had 28 points in game one. Able to do well with the Warriors' lack of size. Is that the guy you were talking about earlier, Defensive Player of the Year?
No, yeah, I mean, he was definitely in conversation for one of the better defensive players in the league. Both Reed Wallach and I had jumped on him when he was at +700. I think Reed might have gotten him at an even better price, maybe even at odds of 10 or 12 to 1. But he can kind of do everything for Memphis. Like, he's got great size and great wingspan. He can knock down outside shots. I think he shot right around maybe 38%, possibly even better from 3-point range. And you're right. Like, Golden State is such a good defensive team, but he was terrific in game one. And he finished with 44 points, rebounds, and assists, or as our guy Reed likes to call it, pros, which I still can never get behind. And he had a monster usage rate. Like, the ball was working through him more than 32.5% of the time. So he's going to be involved heavily. And he put up those numbers too, Iain, playing only just under 31 minutes. So it feels like the line is maybe a tad bit soft. Points and rebounds over 22. Yeah, if he gets to his 15 to 16 range per night, he can absolutely grab 8 to 10 boards and finish this prop in fairly easy fashion.
Love it. I will say, I just thought of this. I'm a little nervous now because now I'm backing a ton of favorites in NHL, and now I'm on favorites in the 2 NBA games as well. So let's hope for a chalky night, I suppose. So
you could always take always emo bet the Blue Jays, who are favored in the game of the night tonight. But we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I think we are going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, we are going to take a few minutes, really quick here, Ben, to talk about how to bet both on the NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs. I'll tackle NHL first. And then you can tackle NBA. So we can kind of help.
I'm excited because all throughout the NHL season, I've heard all these different names. I've heard about all these different stats. And I thought to myself, at some point I'll get a better sense of what they are. This is the perfect opportunity, especially for anybody that wants to make sure that they're not missing out, that doesn't have the FOMO, the fear of missing out from the NHL postseason. So lay it on us.
All right, so basically when I talk about, or when I handicap NHL, there's 3 groupings of stats that I look at. And the first one is the most infamous, the one that I want to bring up the most, the one that I get teased on the most. Even at previous places I worked, people would make fun of me because of how much I would cite this. And then I came to BetSided, and you guys didn't even know, and you guys make fun of me for citing the stats so much. So, but I am in love with it. I am married to it. And that is Corsi percentage. I'm going to pair in Fenwick percentage as well because very similar. I actually looked this up here because I actually thought it was Jim Corsi who created it. It's not. It's actually created by Tim Barnes. He named it after Jim Corsi.
Okay.
But basically, it is an advanced analytic that measures the percentage of all types of shots. So those are shots on net, missed shots, and block shots. And then it compares how many of those a team has compared to how many their opponent has, and it comes out with a percentage. It basically kind of shows possession, how much time in the offensive zone, those kinds of things. Because in hockey, it's impossible to measure time of possession because the puck is just bouncing all over the place. So Corsi is kind of used for that. Fenwick, who was created by shout out Matt Fenwick. He actually decided to name it after himself, unlike Tim Barnes, who named it after someone else. So
yeah, no, the Stugatz is strong in Matt Fenwick. But my question is, does it have a bit of a weighted on shots on net versus shots outside of net? Because I would imagine not all shots in hockey are created equal.
Correct. It is not weighted, but that's why you should look at more things than just Corsi. And some other things that I'm going to bring up, which will kind of supplement it. Because it's mostly just kind of looked at. It's not looked at for quality shots or anything like that. It's mostly used to kind of measure possession more than anything else. Fenwick is the exact same as Corsi, except they take out block shots. So what's his name? Matt Fenwick. He believes that block shots are kind of more of a skill, and avoiding and not allowing your shots to get blocked are a little bit more of an objective skill. So he thinks a better measurement of possession is to take out the block shots and just look at shots on net and shots that miss the net. So I like Corsi personally. There is always that argument which one is kind of more effective at determining outcomes of games, Corsi or Fenwick. I'm a Corsi guy. I like to toss block shots in there, but that's my quick explanation of those two. Those are kind of the super in-depth advanced analytics that you hear all the time, but you never really know what they mean because they're not really self-descriptive. So Corsi and Fenwick is the first group. The next group, high danger scoring chances and expected goals. These are a little bit more tough to explain, especially expected goals. But I mean, if I were to really dumb it down, and some analytics guy who's like, this is their job is to study these analytics are going to hate me for this description. But basically expected goals is you take all shots on net, but then you rank them for a certain amount of points depending on where they're taken at what part of the ice. So that like if it's in a high danger zone, that shot is worth more. If they're in kind of the outsides or up by the blue line, then those shots are worth less. But basically, it is kind of self-explanatory. It's how many goals a team is expected to score over the span of 60 minutes. High danger scoring chances might be my favorite. The high danger zone is right in front of the net. Obviously, if you just think, what would be the most dangerous, place to take a shot, it'd be right in front of the net. That's where a large majority of goals come from. So teams that are able to get off a lot of shots in that high danger zone right in front of the net, aka the slot, it's referred to a lot. You're going to be able to score goals if you get off a lot of shots. And then on the flip side of things, if you're able to prevent people from taking shots right in the slot, then that's going to help your defensive statistics as well. So that's kind of, if you pair that with Corsi, you're going to get an overall good view of both possession and effectiveness of those possessions. And then finally, the last two aren't advanced analytics, but they're a little bit more straightforward, and these are extremely important as well. And the Los Angeles Kings are a perfect example of this. Straight up shooting percentage and save percentage. How many of your shots on net, what percentage of your shots on net go in? And then on the flip side, what percentage of the shots on your own net go in? The reason why I bring this up, the LA Kings are the perfect example. Fantastic this season in the advanced analytics. Corsi, Fenwick, high danger scoring chances, expected goals. Fantastic in that. They can't put the puck in the net. Dead last in shooting percentage. So you can be as good as you want in between the blue lines. You can do all the complicated things right. If you just aren't a good shooting team, though, you're going to suffer. Now, they are a playoff team. We'll see how it works out. They won last night, and that's a big reason why I have been betting on them, because I think shooting percentage can fluctuate a little bit. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to put the puck in the net. And that's kind of more of a talent and a skill thing as opposed to game playing and kind of flow of the game thing. So, and then obviously save percentage is just a measure of how good your goalie is. I think it's a better measurement than goals against average. So those are the simple ones. So if you want to kind of summarize, if you want to study your picks for the NHL, look at Corsi, Fenwick, and then look at high danger scoring chances and expected goals. And then to top it off, you got to look at the basic things, shooting percentage and save percentage.
I feel so much better. And I hope that I wasn't, when you say, the BetSided team was making fun of you for referencing Corsi and Fenwick, I think it was just purely out of ignorance. You brought in these two names that were greatly associated in the world of hockey, and we just didn't know. We just didn't know what we could have been learning in the process. But I mean, I understand Corsi and Fenwick now in the span of about 2-3 minutes. It's basically possessions. Is sort of reflected over the course of it, and then taking the sort of the right shots at the right time. Essentially, how you can sort of put them all together. And in one of them, and they're not necessarily weighted, Fenwick takes out the block shots, which I grew up a Chicago Blackhawks fan, and I keep thinking about Dustin Byfuglien in the early Stanley Cup run, just standing directly by the goal, and how many block shots he was either taking from his team and then deflecting it in the process. I don't know if there's the equivalent of a Dustin Byfuglien in today's NHL anymore, but yeah, a lot of those guys can change the trajectory of those shots, and having that information is going to be critical.
Yeah, or on defense, preventing the shot from even reaching the net if they can step in front of it. So, that's the thing about Corsi and Fenwick. They just don't really. You have to actually look into it, even know what someone's talking about. Even if you start talking 5-on-5 Corsi percentage, people are like, "What are you even talking about?" But there you go, my quick little breakdown for how to bet on the NHL playoffs. best of luck if you use those numbers. We'll see how it works for me because, like I said, I'm betting on every single NHL playoff game. So I'm about to put my money where my mouth is. Ben, talk to me about the NBA playoffs.
All right. So you have your list of stats that you tend to look for on the NHL side. I'll give a few that I tend to go for when it comes to betting on the NBA. The first one, I think especially this applies to the Bucks and the Celtics series. And I referenced Chris Middleton in my notes, but now I think, if you're trying to figure out the best plays and the best props for tonight, without Marcus Smart in the lineup, on-off splits is a really, really good measure, especially in the NBA where, more so than any other team sport, you can go and isolate and you can really kind of take over a game one player at a time. So essentially for anybody that's curious as to what an on-off split is how does player X perform when player Y is either on the court versus off the court? And again, it's huge in finding opportunities for advantages, determining what a player's usage rate, which is basically the amount of time the ball goes through them in the offense, when there's injuries on the floor. So an example here for Chris Middleton, who's been out for the Bucks, probably going to miss the entirety of the series. They turn the ball over substantially more without Chris Middleton in the lineup. The Bucks rank, and this is from Cleaning the Glass, they're in the 71st percentile in turnover percentage with Chris Middleton. So fairly solid, sort of in that upper tier of the league, but they're right in the middle of the pack without him. So if you're looking for some possible blocks and steals props for tonight, or maybe you're thinking that they could lead to a few more fast break opportunities for Milwaukee. You know that they're likely to turn the ball over a little bit more without Chris Middleton in the lineup compared to when he is in there. So something to consider there. All the team ratings, whether it be offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating, basically what team rating is, it's just a more useful metric that will determine how efficient or inefficient teams are, both offensively and defensively per 100 possessions. 100, it can be a bit of a fluctuating number. Teams traditionally average somewhere around 100 possessions per game. And it's a more predictive stat than say like points per game or points per game allowed, because rating does not consider pace or tempo. So if you're a team that likes to, like if you're Charlotte, right? Charlotte was like racing down the court, trying to get a shot up as quick as possible. So they're going to score more points naturally as a result of it. The problem is like, that's going to be reflective in their points per game versus if you're trying to evaluate how well they do each possession, that number is actually going to be a little bit more true and accurate. As far as net rating goes, this is where I think is a really useful stat as well. Just like offensive and defensive rating, it's point differential, but it's over 100 possessions versus, a per game level or overall season. So another one for Bucks and Celtics tonight. The Bucks net rating, Ian, in the playoffs so far is plus 13.4. What that means is what's that?
That sounds good.
It's very good. That means that they're outscoring their opponents by an average of 13.4 points per 100 possessions. So they've been playing great. Granted, that's probably a bit skewed because they played the Chicago Bulls, who were decimated with injuries and blew them out in multiple games in Chicago. Conversely, Boston's net rating in the playoffs is also good, but it's just +1. So you're looking at the spread for tonight. Celtics a 4-point favorite against Milwaukee. If you're looking at it from a net rating perspective, you might think to yourself, there could be a bit of an advantage here because Milwaukee has just been dominating. They've been outscoring their opponents by almost 13.5 points per game. Maybe I might look to the Bucks as an underdog, knowing what their net rating consistently over the postseason has been. So that's net rating. And then one other one that I like to go for, you kind of touched on it briefly, is pace. Pace is also very helpful when you're trying to determine whether or not an over-under is at the right play. And for anybody that follows, hockey as well, they certainly know that pace is important as well. It's total number of possessions that a team uses in a game per 48 minutes. So it's not per 100 possessions, it's per 48 minutes. And the 48 comes from the 4 12-minute quarters. You take a look at the teams that are playing tonight in pace. The Bucks at 101, that's fourth best in the postseason. Boston all the way down to 96.1, so that's down to 7. So they're going to play a little bit slower, a little bit more half court. No Marcus Smart is going to change the dynamic for how they set up on the offensive end. Total in that game, fairly low, 216 compared to traditional NBA games, and the under hit because Boston was in the 80s last time they played. Then you have Golden State and you have the Grizzlies. The Warriors rank 5th currently in pace. It's a fairly defensive team. People I think still look at Golden State as the Splash Brothers and a dynamic offense, but they're, like I said, they're a top 3 defense in the league this year. But Memphis loves to push the pace. They're second in pace at 102.86. And the total in that game is reflective of that. The total sits at 227, and the over hit the last time these two teams played. So again, when you look at the pace for both these teams and you see how many possessions they're averaging per 48 minutes, it will help you make a better determination on where the under and over, or where the over-under should go. So pace, net rating, both offensive and defensive rating, and then on-off splits are the ways that I like to approach attacking betting on the NBA playoffs.
I like it. I recognize a lot of those because I don't bet on the NBA, but I bet on a lot of college basketball. And obviously a lot of those carry over to the college game as well. So
just no Ken Pom, right?
No Ken Pom. I was waiting for you to say Ken Pom. Does he
when
know
you
what
brought up
NBA?
college basketball, I knew it was a trigger point for you. I had to do it.
Is he college basketball only? He doesn't do NBA?
Does not do NBA. No, if there was a Ken Pom for NBA, I would be there every day as well.
What a shame. Yeah, I'm very anti Ken Pom, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, good stuff. Good, interesting stuff. I think there are some NBA playoff trends that we were looking at as well. Or did you unders are 29 and 18?
Yeah, just a couple of quick notes before we dive into to our game of the night. For anybody that's been following along with the NBA playoffs and are curious as to know how have favorites done, how have unders done, what about teams on the road versus at home? Like you mentioned, unders have been dominant so far in the NBA postseason. 29 and 18 against the spread, unders hitting at just under 62%. Favorites also dominant straight up, which again, part of the reason why if you want to bet a favorite on the money line, wait until in game to do so. But they've also been very good against the spread, hitting 57.4% of the time, 27 and 20. And then this is also interesting as well. Home teams, 26 and 21 straight up, but away teams are 26 and 21 against the spread. So you're getting a little bit more value on books, putting a little bit more emphasis than you would maybe initially expect on some of these home teams, whereas like it's actually been a little bit closer and road teams have actually done a better job covering away from home.
Interesting stuff. And you know what other sport the unders have been hitting at a high rate?
That would be Major League Baseball.
That would be Major League Baseball. So let's transition to the game of the night. New York Yankees against my beloved Toronto Blue Jays. There is a side note, slight chance that the city of Toronto might also have a Stanley Cup and a World Series in the same year. Who knows? Could happen.
How many parades can you plan in your head right now? Like planning one in Toronto must be exhausting, but the plan two? Come on now.
I know it's going to be a lot of work, but we're going to figure it out. Right. Big pitching matchup, and do you know how to pronounce the Yankees? Is it Talon?
Jameson Taillon.
My issue, and this is why I mispronounce so many athletes' names, is that 95% of the time when I watch sports, it's muted. I don't like listening to play-by-play or commentary whatsoever. So because of that, player names I never get because I only ever read them. Unless it's my team, then I'll watch them so often I'll figure it out. But
I know we have a limited amount of time, but this is befuddling to me. Some of the announcers. Toronto has one of the best play-by-play announcers ever in Dan Schulman. Like you're turning that sound down. I would never in a million years even consider the possibility unless there's just other things going on where, something else has to be on. But I mean, you learn so much from a lot of these announcers. Yeah. I'm very surprised to hear this.
Yeah. It's not for me. It's not for me. We can dive into that another day. Cause I could rant about it.
We got a lot to discuss.
That's why I mispronounce so many last names because it's just on mute. So I only ever read them for the large majority of time, but he's facing my guy, Alek Manoah, who, let's get into it. Do you want to just dive into our best bets for the game here? Blue Jays are minus 120, 122 at WinBet, which I think actually I've looked around. If you want to bet on this game, I think, and if you want to take the Blue Jays, I think WinBet's the way to go because that's the shortest odds I've seen, minus 122 for the Blue Jays. Yankees plus 112 in Toronto, over under 7.5. So let's talk about, I guess I'll tackle my best bet, and then we'll get to yours, Ben. Is there any doubt where I'm going? No, I'm going with the Blue Jays. I'm not going to take the Yankees in this. Of course, I'm going to back Alek Manoah. Now, some of you might say, oh, Iain, the Yankees are on a 10-game win streak. They have, I think it's the best record in Major League Baseball, or at least the best record in the AL. Let's look at strength of schedule. These two teams played in a series a few weeks back in New York. Since their last series against the Jays, The Yankees have played the Orioles, the Tigers, the Guardians, the Orioles, and the Royals. Their record and offensive numbers are meaningless. They mean nothing at this point in the season. They basically just played semi-pro teams for a month straight. Meanwhile, in the same span since last time these two teams faced off, the Blue Jays went Red Sox, Astros, Red Sox, Astros. I mean, this is not even fair. Throw the numbers out the window. Throw the statistics out the window. They mean nothing. The Yankees, once again, Orioles, Tigers, Guardians, Orioles, Royals. Who cares if they won 10 games in a row? They should have won 10 games in a row. I can't believe they lost any of those games. And now we're taking an Alek Manoah is starting for the Blue Jays. And I've been saying this for a couple weeks now. He will be the 2022 AL Cy Young winner. 1.44 ERA, 0.88 whip. Only in his second season. This guy's going to help lead us to a World Series. Blue Jays, big win tonight. Get back on track after a close loss last night with Ross Stripling starting for them. I'll take the Blue Jays minus 122.
All right. First of all, I don't want to rain on your Alek Manoah Cy Young parade because he's been outstanding. He's 1.44 ERA through his first several starts of the season. Back at home, dominant opportunity to be able to go ahead and stop a 10-game win streak for the New York Yankees. I don't want to rain on that parade, but it would get in the way of my Logan Gilbert Cy Young pick at 70-1 odds. So, yeah, if I'm going to have to hedge here, I don't know if I'm ready to hedge with somebody like Manoah or even Kevin Gausman, who still has yet to allow a walk.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Doesn't even make sense.
Absolutely incredible. And the strikeout rate is already up from before. Like I didn't know he could go into a hitter-friendly park in a very, very tough division from San Francisco and improve his numbers. But sure enough, he's off to a ridiculous start. I think he leads all American League pitchers in wins above replacement. But enough about a pitcher that's not actually going today. I like Manoah quite a bit. But I also like Jameson Taillon to keep this game a little bit close. We saw a pitcher's duel last night over at the Rogers Center. It was a 3-2 game that the Yankees ended up winning a little bit late. In fact, I like both these pitchers so much that my best bet of the night is actually on the first 5 at 4. I like the under 4 at minus 125. As I just expect both of these starting pitchers to feel their way through this lineup. You mentioned Manoah's already had success against the Yankees earlier this season. I know that Peter wrote about it today over at BetSided as well. Taillon especially, like we talk about how good Manoah has been. Like the strikeout rate right now is around 26%. He's not allowing a lot of hard hit balls at all, right around 31% over at his StatCast numbers. Exit velocity off a guy that that throws really hard. Normally you expect a hard throwing fastball type pitcher to give up more hard hit balls, but he hasn't been doing that. The expected batting average against is under 200. So Manoah's been terrific, but I want to give some credit to Taillon too. You're just talking about how good Kevin Gausman has been with his control. Taillon's had remarkable control. He's one of the league leaders this year in walk percentage, only a walking 2.5% of batters that he has faced over the course of this year. He's still striking out 21% of the batters that he's gone up against. And he's giving up a hard hit rate of just under 33% as well. So between both these starting pitchers, between both offenses, not necessarily leaping out in any opportunity that they've played recently, I see another pitcher's duel. And I think 4 is a reasonable number, especially with a total hovering around 7. I like both these starting pitchers to go past 5 innings, be in control. It'll probably be close. We might see 2-1 by the time the 5th inning is done, but that's still going to get that bet across. So I like it at under 4 between both of these two starting pitchers tonight that have as ton of talent as anybody. Taillon was a former number 2 overall pick.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. So Jays 3-0 through 5 innings sounds like the perfect result.
Let's go. If it's Jays 3-0, if it's Jays 2-1. And also, we should mention that our listeners and our viewers, Iain, they'll get behind you, especially with a little bit of a rallying cry. Did we find out whether or not our viewers, our community, is going to be backing you with the Toronto Blue Jays tonight?
Yes, we did, and they are. And I think there's a lopsided poll. I didn't look at the YouTube poll, but the Twitter poll, 66.7% of the votes are on the Blue Jays tonight.
Gotta lock them in.
I now have to double up my bet, so I will have 2 units on my Blue Jays. Go Jays, go!
Go Jays, go! All right, just make sure that you keep it to less than 3 runs if you're going to look to shut out the Yankees, at least through the first 5 innings. Afterwards, do whatever the hell you want. Just keep it under 4 for the first 5 if you don't mind.
Perfect. So 3-0 at the end of the 5, and then Jays can score 10 runs in the 6th inning.
Perfect. Everybody wins.
Perfect. So yeah, that's our show. Now that we have our best bet for the night from the community, they're with me on the Jays. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. It'll be Reed and Peter tomorrow. Look at that. The 2 hosts teamed up today, and now one of those guys, I think, hosts for the first time. Maybe they hosted on Bet Breakfast once in the weekend. I don't know. But I'm excited for that. That should be a fun show. A couple other videos you can check out now that we're done. Rookies versus the vet. Myself and Donovan are going head-to-head in a little NHL competition. We broke down our picks for each series. Check that out because you can still bet. You can bet on series winner for any series, but obviously there are still 4 that haven't started yet, will begin tonight. And then if you are looking to bet on golf this weekend, the Wells Fargo Championship, myself and Cody Williams of BetSided broke down our best bets in this week's episode of Green on the Greens yesterday. So check that out as well. Ben, any final comments?
You're going with Corey Connors for your pick this week at the Wells Fargo, correct? Just want to confirm that.
It's the last time that I'm betting on him if he doesn't win because I'm sick of it. I think he's passed Andrew Shoffley for the golfer that's cost me the most money by betting on him and not winning. And everything is working in his favor this weekend, so it's now or never, Corey.
Yeah, and the odds are fairly sizable over at WinBet, so I think I'm going to tail you there. But that show's always a lot of fun, and props to you and Donovan for putting together Rookie and the Vet. Very curious as whether or not the underdog and Donovan at plus 120, I believe, was where we set the odds for the rookie to come across. Puck can bounce a lot of different weird ways in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Very curious to see what happens checking in after round 1, but that was a lot of fun to watch as well.
In the words of the legendary Red Green, keep your stick on the ice. And now I'm saying that you don't know who Red Green is, do you?
I've heard the name. I've heard the name Red Green.
Canadian legend. That's how we ended every show was keep your stick on the ice. But there you have it. That was our show for today. Myself and Ben, thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Good luck with your bets tonight, and we will talk to you soon.